Losing trick count is another one of those secondary hand evaluation tools. Last week we talked about tricks and how Ellie Culbertson used them to determine opening hands and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of the main reasons that these secondary methods of hand evaluation have come along and become popular is because the constant upgrading and downgrading based on the bidding. Of course, you all know, or I know you've heard me say, that every time your partner bids or the opponent's bid, you need to reevaluate your hand. Your hand will seldom stay the same throughout the bidding. It's just, if you start out with a 9 or 10 point hand, generally the bidding will let you know whether you can upgrade it or downgrade it. Sometimes it's positional because you're sitting behind the bidder with a good holding in his suit, maybe, or maybe you're sitting in front of him and you have a vulnerable honor, and so you suspect, uh-oh, this honor in his suit is no longer worth the full value that I gave it. So high card points are useful when you're talking about balanced hands and some unbalanced hands. But when you get into really unbalanced hands, you need something else. I know that periodically hands come up and maybe you're 7-6. That's an extreme example, but I have actually picked up 1 or 2 hands like that in my bridge career. And maybe it has 7 or 8 points in it. And I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to bid this suit? You know, how am I going to convey to my partner that my hand is so extreme? Well, I try not to worry about it too much because these types of hands just don't happen every day. But losing trick count in particular can be more informative. Now, obviously, you don't want to take it to extreme, and you don't want to overuse it. Some people will use losing trick count to evaluate whether to make a penalty double, for instance. I tend to use losing trick count only when my partner and I have found a fit, because that's when it's really easy to estimate the number of tricks that might be available to us once we have found the fit based on my known losing trick count and my partner's estimated losing trick count. And we'll get into how to determine that and what the numbers mean in just a minute. But as I said, there are people who will use it to evaluate whether to balance, whether to open the bidding. I heard one player say one time at the table that, well, we passed a hand out, and I thought, goodness, I only have 7 or 8 points here. Somebody has missed a call. Somebody had an opening hand. Sure enough, one of my opponents said, well, I have a 14-point hand, but it's got 9 losers in it. So you have to be careful when you open a 9-loser hand. Well, like we talked about last week, 14-point hands will nearly always have 2 quick tricks in. 99% chance that there will be 2 quick tricks in a 14-point hand. So you really take a risk when you pass a hand like that. And sure enough, she and her partner missed a game, got a poor result because she used losing trick count to evaluate whether to open the hand. I do not use it that way. There are some who do. But I am not one of these folks. I find it most helpful for once my partner has shown me a fit. For instance, I open 1 of a major, and my partner bids 2 of a major. Now I look at my hand, and if I have a losing trick count of 6, well, I'm going to use some kind of a help suit game try. If I have a losing trick count of 7, though, I'm going to pass. So these are the times when I use losing trick count, and not for some of the other times that you will see some people talk about. Now, how do you come to the losing trick count for a hand? Well, every suit has a losing trick count, and just by adding up the losing tricks in all the suits, you come to the losing trick count for the hand. Pretty straightforward here. Now, the maximum losing trick count for any suit is 3, but it never exceeds the total number of cards held in that suit. In other words, if you're missing the ace, king, queen, this is what we're looking for, the ace, king, and queen in each suit. Maybe you have 2 cards in the suit. We don't count that as 3 losers. If you don't have the ace or king with that doubleton, then that's a losing trick count of only 2, because you never have more losing tricks in a suit than you have cards in the suit. So, for instance, if you held a singleton, that would be only 1 loser, unless that singleton is the ace. If your hand has absolutely no ace, king, or queen in any suit in it, then the losing trick count is 12, which is the maximum for any hand. We've all picked up hands that had 2 jacks in it, and had absolutely no tricks available at all. That is the absolute maximum number, because it's losing trick count assumes that you have a chance to take a trick on the 4th round if you have a 4-card suit. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to, but you have the chance. And this is why they count only the top 3 honors. So, and of course, if it's it needs to be a 4-3-3-3 suit to have 12 losers in it, because if you only have 2 cards in one of the suits, then your total is not going to come to 12. Now, I put a slide at the end here that shows how many losers there are on average with different suit holdings, and I'll explain that a little bit when we get there, because it depends on how many cards you hold. Say you have an ace and 2 little ones, or ace and 3 little ones, or maybe you have a queen doubleton, or maybe you have queen third in a suit, then they're counted differently depending on the number of cards and supporting cards you have in that suit. Now, the example I've given here has 7 losers in it. This is the average for an opening hand. The standard minimum opening hand will have a losing trick count of 7. There's 3 losers in spades, because we don't have the ace, king, or queen. We're missing all 3. It's possible that you might get a trick with the jack, if 2, or with the 10 or the 9, since they're all equal, of course. If 2 of the honors fall on one trick, you may end up getting a trick with one of these cards, but it's dubious. So, not holding the ace, king, or queen, this is 3 losers. The heart suit has only 1 in it, because we have the ace and king, but no queen. There is 1 loser in diamonds, but I'll be honest, when I'm holding something like this, if I have to say it depends, well, number 1, if my partner doesn't have the ace, then I may have 2 losers if the hand on my left is sitting there with the ace. So I look at that and I say, I'm counting 1 loser to begin with, but it could be 2 losers. If we happen to get the bid and I'm counting losers to determine how I'm going to play our contract, this could end up being 2 losers, because if you have to say it depends in that situation, then it's a loser. You just can't go with saying, oh, I only have 1 loser here, when you're trying to determine how many losers there are in your hand when you're getting ready to play it. When you're using losing trick count, though, this is counted as 1 loser. Then there are 2 losers in the club suit, because, yeah, we have another honor, which is wonderful, but we're missing the king and queen, and that means we have to count 2 losers. So, and if you look at the point count here, this has 16 points in it, right? No, wait a minute. 8, Yeah. Hmm. This hand has 16 high card points in it and should be a one no trump opener, unless there are some of you who might open that one heart. But with 16 points, I'm disappointed when I don't have a 6 loser hand. But this is a 7 loser hand. And part of the reason is because it is so balanced. Balanced hands typically have more losers or more potential losers in them than unbalanced hands do. Now, there is a big exception here. When you have a queen in a non-trump suit, a queen in a side suit, in other words, it will not lower your losing trick count unless it has another honor in the suit with it. So in other words, Queen XX in a side suit is 3 losers. But King Queen X, of course, is only 1. Ace Queen X is only 1. And Queen Jack X is 2 losers. It does lower your losing trick count if you have another honor with it, but just Queen third in a side suit. Now, if you have the trump queen, that is the very opposite thing is true there. When you have the trump queen, that's such an important card on its own that possession of the trump queen does lower the losing trick count of the hand, whether or not you have another honor with it, because partner has suggested to you that he has something in the suit. If it's your hand, you know whether you have something else with the queen. But if you're the responder and you have queen and 2 small, there's a good chance that your partner has supporting honors because he has bid the suit, suggesting it as the trump suit. And that's why when you hold the trump queen all by itself, it does lower the losing trick count of your hand. So now let's take a look at this next example here. If the trump suit has not yet been set, then the losing trick count of this hand is 7. Because no queen can be promoted. Now, obviously, King, Queen, Jack of hearts, we're counting only 1 loser in that suit. If after the next round of bidding, diamonds becomes the trump suit, then now the losing trick count is 6 because you hold the queen in the agreed upon trump suit. This is a concrete example of what I was talking about. If spades are established as the trump suit, well, you have support there, and you probably counted only 2 losers in spades. Well, we can't subtract another loser because we already counted 2, and we can't promote the queen jack 10 to the king at all. King queen jack, the queen carries its full weight there, but in diamonds here, until and unless diamonds becomes the trump suit, that queen cannot be used to lower the losing trick count in this hand. That's the way that rule works, and it's important to remember that in order to be as accurate as possible when you're reevaluating your hand. And note, we're still using counting high card points as the primary method of hand evaluation. But as I said last week, not all high card points are created equal. High cards from honors that have other honors in the suit, like the heart suit, are worth more than an honor that's just by itself. Scattered values, in other words, are not nearly as desirable as values that are concentrated in the longer suits. We know how to count losing trick count here. So how am I supposed to use it? How does this help me? Why do I need to spend any time at all trying to figure this out? Basically, I use quick tricks when I'm thinking about opening a hand. In other words, I said last week that I open almost all hands with 2 quick tricks in it. And I certainly would open an 11-point hand that was ace king in one suit and ace in another, having 3 quick tricks. I would always open that hand, even though it's only 11 points. I use losing trick count, though, only once that my partner and I have found a fit. So I'm confirming the strength of my hand once the fit has been found. So a minimum opening hand, as I said earlier, will have a losing trick count of 7. If your hand has a losing trick count of 6 in it, regardless of the number of points, that is considered to have the playing strength of an invitational level hand. If it has a losing trick count of 5, that's a game-forcing hand. Again, regardless of the number of high card points, because losing trick count attempts to take shape into account. So if you have a void or a singleton, well, you have just cut out 3 potential losing tricks in your hand because you don't have any cards in that suit and you have length in another one. So when you have a losing trick count of 5, you either have that hand worth 19 to 21 points, or you have quite a lot of distribution that helps you get to that losing trick count of only 5. And then, of course, if you have a losing trick count of 4, that's within 1 trick of game, and that is the equivalent of a strong 2-club opener. But note, it is not an automatic 2-club opener. I'm going to show you a hand later on that has 4 losers in it, and you can't even open it. It is just purely distributional. So now the first 2 examples here, each of these 2 hands has a losing trick count of 7. This first hand is the one we looked at earlier that has 16 high card points in it. And the second one has 11 high card points in it. Now, these 2 hands are being bid in the first or second seat, and there's been no competition. Are you going to open this second hand? It has a losing trick count of 7, but I'm not opening that hand. Notice how quacky it is. It's a 5-4-3-1 hand, which means it has quite a bit of shape. But I just am, that's one I'm probably going to pass in first or second seat, simply because I have no source of tricks here. I don't have an ace at all. First off, I'm going to subtract a point from this hand because it is aceless. That is a real drawback. But I'm going to open hand number 1, 1 no trump all day long. Or 1 heart. If your style is to open at 1 heart, that's fine, but then you have a rebid problem. Because if partner bids 1 spade, then 1 no trump shows 12 to 14 and you have 16, and 2 no trump shows 18 or 19, and that's an overbid. So you have a real rebid problem if you open hand number 1, 1 heart. But if that's your agreement with your partner, then by all means, I would presume that you have discussed rebids. But I prefer to open these hands 1 no trump because it solves my rebid problems for me. Now then, as I said earlier, I would not open hand number 2 because I don't use losing trick count to determine whether I'm going to open. Notice I have only 1 quick trick in this hand, this second one from the King Queen of Hearts. So I'm not going to open that hand at all. It has 11 high card points in it, but I call that 11 points of trash, and I just don't do it. It does make the rule of 20. So if you and your partner will open in first or second seat by making the rule of 20, that's perfect. I'm a little more conservative. If I'm going to use the rule of 20 in first or second seat, I prefer to use the rule of 20 plus 2. That is, I make the rule of 20, and I also have 2 quick tricks. This hand satisfies the rule of 20, but it fails the rule of 20 plus 2. So I will not open it. That's my style, though. If you have a different style, as long as your partner agrees, then go for it. Now,
Susan, Ella has a question.
go right ahead, Ella.
My question is, if you have 16 high card points, you said to open one no, but I had thought earlier you had said if you have a 5 card major, it's better to open the major and then go to the no trump.
No. For the reason that I just said, 1 no trump is an underbid, 2 no trump is an overbid if you open the 5 card major. I have always been in the with 15 to 17 high card points, or even 14 in a 5 card suit. I open at 1 no trump. It solves my rebid problem. Other people prefer to open one of the major, but I am not one of them. Have never been.
Okay, thank you. I was confused on that, and I had that happen yesterday. So,
Well, and it's your choice between you and your partner. You and your partner may agree to open a 5 card major suit when you have a hand that would otherwise be opened 1 no trump. I will tell you that I have opened one of the major when I have only 15 high card points, but I have ace, king, queen in that major suit. In other words, I have 9 of my 15 points are in that suit. That's where I live. So that's one time when I would strongly consider opening one of the major instead of 1 no trump. But on balance, I am a big fan of opening 1 no trump, even when holding a 5 card major suit, simply because of the rebid problem.
thank you.
You bet. Now here's that hand that I was telling you about earlier that has a losing trick count of 4. I mean, technically, I count the ace and king of hearts and the ace and king of diamonds as losers, and that's it. The ACBL has a rule. You can open a hand that has as few as 8 high card points in it in the first or second seat, so long as you don't do it on a regular basis. If you do that routinely, then it should be pre-alerted. They have a rule about exceptionally weak hands, like hands that are within an ace of an average opening hand, they're okay with occasionally. But if you would routinely open a hand in first or second seat that contains as few as 8 high card points, and you do that, as I said, routinely, you need to pre-alert it, because at some point it will become a partnership understanding. And anything that's a partnership understanding that is substantially different from what the rules that the ACBL provides say there should be in the alert charts and in the convention charts needs to be pre-alerted. So if you would open a hand like this would fall in that category. The ACBL's rules say, however, that this hand has to be passed at your first turn. I would never preempt with it because it has too much playing strength. This has an enormous amount of playing strength for one of the red suits. After the first round of bidding, though, I would jump in with both feet and just keep bidding until hopefully my partner and I found some sort of a fit and go for it. Because I think you can see you have lots and lots of playing strength here. Just loads of it. I would never use a takeout double with it if my partner opened a black, or if my opponent on the right opened a black suit, because what am I going to do if my partner bids the other black suit? I'm nowhere near strong enough to be considering this to be a big double hand. So I would pass this hand once, but I'm not passing it a second time unless the opponents have run the bidding level up so high I don't feel comfortable getting in. For instance, maybe they're already at the 4 no trump level. I don't know. But I would pass it once, and then after that, I would just bid diamonds first, followed by bidding hearts, as many times as I can, because this hand has a lot of playing strength. It just doesn't have sufficient high card strength to be opened at your first turn. Now, so why should I go to all the trouble to learn about losing trick count? Why can't I just rely on high card points and upgrading and downgrading and all of this other stuff? Well, losing trick count gives you a pretty quick way of confirming your initial impression about whether you should invite, whether you should pass, or whether you should bid game. In other words, it can give you the push if you need one. If you're sitting on the fence, losing trick count can help you decide. It can be very, very helpful in terms of helping you determine what your next bid is going to be, or your next call, I should say, is going to be. It is based on a maximum losing trick count of 24 in the two hands. Remember, I said the maximum losing trick count in any one hand is 12 if it's 4-3-3-3 and has no ace, king, or queen in it. So it's based on a maximum of 24 between the two hands. So the best way to utilize it as opener is, you know, your partner's your own losing trick count, and then you can estimate your partner's and add it to your own. Once you have that total, you subtract it from 24. The remainder is the approximate number of tricks that you can expect to take. And sometimes one pair can expect to make 2 hearts, another pair can expect to make 2 spades. Maybe both pairs might be able to make 2 no trump. Sometimes it works out that way. Just because, and we've all seen that happen at the table. One pair can make a contract and another pair can make another one. Maybe you can make 3 clubs and your opponents can make 2 spades. This is why you use losing trick count in these situations, because it gives you another way to estimate the combined playing strength of your two hands. Now, if you're the opener, you can estimate responders' losing trick count. I've shown you here the most common situations that will come up in this particular scenario, and how you will use losing trick count. A simple raise, that is 6 to 9 high card points and 3 or 4 cards support, will 99 times out of 100 be 8 or 9 losing tricks in it. A limit raise should always be 8 losing tricks, a losing trick count of 8. That is 10 to 11 high card points, a total hand evaluation of a really good 10 to a kind of a crappy 12, and 4 card support for a limit raise. In other words, 1 heart, 3 hearts. That should be on average really close to a losing trick count of 8. And a game forcing bid by the responder is a maximum no more than 7 losing tricks. Otherwise, it's not an opening hand, which is what you need to make a game forcing bid. Now, here's an example of a simple raise, how this would work. Opener bids a spade and responder raises to the 2 level. Responder should have a losing trick count of 8 or 9. Now then, the opener's losing trick count, whatever it is, opener knows what it is. He adds that total to 8 or 9 and subtracts that from 24. And that gives him an estimate of the number of makeable tricks. So assuming that your partner has a losing trick count of 8 or 9, and you know, your partner may have gotten a wild hair and raised with only an ace in his hand and 3 card support. And if that's the case, oh well. But most of the time, with a losing trick count of 5 or fewer, the opener just bids game. Because if you have a losing trick count of 5, the most we're giving responders 9. 9 and 5 is 14. 24 minus 14 is 10. That's the number of tricks needed for 4 of a major suit. So that's the estimated makeable tricks between the 2 hands. With a losing trick count of 6, though, the opener should issue some kind of an invitation. This is a game try, whatever kind of game tries you and your partners use. If he needs help in the trump suit, he can bid 3 of the trump suit or another suit at the 3 level once the trump suit has been agreed, remember, is a game try. So even if the opener has only minimum points, if he has a losing trick count of 6, that strongly implies that his hand is good enough to issue an invitation. And with a losing trick count of 7, indicating a minimum opening hand, he should pass. That doesn't mean you might not want to take a sacrifice, and responder would be the one here who would do that if there's competition. If you have a losing trick count of 7, then it's up to responder to take the save if one is available. Maybe he has a 4th trump, but didn't have an adequate number of points to give a limit raise. In that case, he might bid on in competition, but with a losing trick count of 7, unless you had raw meat for breakfast or something like that, you should generally pass. Now, here are 3 examples of hands that all have 14 high card points. Your partner has given you a simple raise in spades after you opened. Would you bid all of these 3 hands the same? I think if you look at them, you can tell that they are different enough that they should not be bid the same. So let's take a look at this first one. Opener bid 1 spade. He has 14 high card points, as I said, has a doubleton, or he has a 5 card suit. Here he would be, once the fit's been found, he can say, well, I have 1 more point here for length in spades, but I have a losing trick count of 7. The absolutely most optimistic losing trick count of the 2 hands is 15. That would be 7 and 8. If the responder has a losing trick count of 8 and you have 7, that means the total is 15. Subtract that from 24 and you get 9. The maximum, the losing trick count that you need for a game is 14 here, because you're contracting for 10 tricks when you bid the game. Losing trick count indicates that there is no game available with this hand and the average responding hand. Let's take a look at number 2 here, though. This one has a losing trick count of 6. Notice that there's more shape in the hand. Now, the spade suit isn't anything to write home about, but this is a hand with pretty good playing strength. Number 1, there's 6 spades in it, and it's 6-3-3-1. That's much better than 6-3-2-2. Now, this makes the hand suitable for issuing an invitation to game. In this case, I would bid 3 spades because I definitely need help in the spade suit. You could, if you wanted to, bid 3 diamonds because you have an honor 3rd there, and that makes it suitable for asking for help in the diamond suit as well, or even the club suit. It all depends on how you and your partner prefer to do it, but I would really feel a lot better if my partner had some help for me in the spade suit. Now, if the responder has a losing trick count of 8, once you have issued the invitation, 8 and 16, I'm sorry, 8 and 6 makes 14. Subtract that from 24, you get 10. So if responder says, oh, my partner has invited me, he should have a losing trick count of 6. What's my losing trick count? If it's 9, he just returns to 3 of the trump suit. But if it's 8, he should bid the game. This is how you use losing trick count to estimate whether to accept an invitation. Now this last one here is a 14-point wonder that has lots of shape and all the honors are concentrated in the long suits. I love it when that happens. That's always a much better hand than the opposite, which would be honors in the short suits. This hand has a losing trick count of only 5. 1 in spades, 1 in hearts, 1 in diamonds, and 2 in clubs. This means that opposite even a 9 loser hand held by the responder, that still comes to 14. Subtract it from 24 and we have 10. This is just as I have always said, 5 loser hand should generally bid game if he gets even a simple raise from his partner. And this illustrates why. With 6-4 distribution and 14 points, you get a much stronger hand here than you do either one of these other two. This is why bridge is so fascinating. These are both 14-point hands, but this third one is so much better than either one of the other two. It's what you just don't bid them the same way at all because they don't have the same kind of playing strength. And that's the advantage of using quick tricks when you're thinking about opening a hand and using losing trick count when you're thinking about how to proceed after your partner has given you just a simple raise. Here are more examples, just in case anybody doesn't have it yet. Here, openers losing trick count is 7. 1 in spades, only 1 in hearts because we have only 2 cards. 2 in diamonds and 3 in clubs. Losing trick count of 7. Responder bid 2 spades. He has 9 losing tricks in his hand, but we use the queen of trumps here to lower the losing trick count because this is the queen of trumps. It is also supported by the 10, but we count this as only 2 losers, not 3. If this were in a side suit, it would be a horse of a different color. But this is the trump suit, so we have only 2 losers here. We have 3 in hearts, 2 in diamonds, 2 in clubs. If you add 9 and 7 together, you get 16. Subtract 16 from 24, 8 tricks. Happens to be the prediction from using losing trick count. The next one here, openers losing trick count is 5. Once again, we have good distribution. Honors are all in the long suits. Man, I wish I got more hands like this. Responders losing trick count is 8. He has 2 in spades, 1 in hearts, 3 in diamonds, and 2 in clubs. He knows, well, no, he's not the one who's going to bid next. The opener's going to bid next with a losing trick count of 5. Even if responder has a losing trick count of 9, 10 tricks should be there. Here, losing trick count predicts that there are 11 tricks available. So the opener should bid 4 spades. As it happens, responder has a losing trick count of only 8, but opener should be pessimistic and call it 9 when he's thinking about it. Okay, I have a losing trick count of 5. Even if my partner has 9, we should still have 10 tricks available. Once again, opener's losing trick count on this next one is 5. The responder's losing trick count is 7. Are you going to bid slam on this hand? You can't stretch this indefinitely here. You have to use a little bit of sense. Notice the king of clubs is wasted opposite the void in the responder's hand. You have length and strength in hearts, and partner has a singleton ace. You have a problem with your trump suit. Yes, this produces a losing trick count of 12, but slam is not available here. This is not this is one reason why I look at it for bidding games only. It is easy to get into the situation of being too aggressive when opener has no way of knowing that responder has the hand that he has. I mean, he's only bid 2 spades here because he only has 7 high card points. I would be tempted to bid 3 spades here because I have 4 of them. And when you count my void, it looks pretty good. It all depends on what your partner and you have decided to do with hands like responder's hand here. It's not often that the opener will have a losing trick count of 5 when the responder has this kind of hand. The hands don't fit very well together, in other words. So 2 spades, 3 spades. I'm tempted to bid 3 spades because I have 4 trumps. I have 7 high card points and a void. To my mind, that has invitational playing strength, but use everything judiciously is my point. Don't abuse it, in other words, is the point I'm trying to make. I have a couple more examples here for you, and then we're going to talk about cover cards for just a minute. Here, the opener's losing trick count is 7, and that's also the responder's losing trick count. These 2 hands, though, come up fairly often. The losing trick count in responder's hand is 7, but the high card total isn't what you would need to make a 2/1 response. There are only 10 high card points. So if you and your partner use reverse Bergen, the 3 club bid is perfect for this hand. That says, partner, I have 4 card support and I have a hand with 10 or 11 high card points in it. It is alertable because it's clubs. You're not proposing that you play in clubs. In other words, it's not a natural bid, so it needs to be alerted. If partner then bids 3 spades only, then responder can go ahead and bid the game based on the trick-taking potential of this hand. It has only 10 high card points in it. I would be hesitant to jump to game, even though my losing trick count is 7 here. I would never bid Jacoby 2 no trump with it either. Yes, I have what amounts to the playing strength of an opening hand, but I lack the high card points needed to make a Jacoby forcing raise. This kind of hand is best served by either bidding 3 spades, you definitely have 4 card support and you have 10 high card points, or if you use reverse Bergen, you can bid 3 clubs, and if partner rebids minimally, you have additional playing strength, and you have the option then of raising to 4. If you just use the 3 spade bid, partner can pass it if he's a minimum hand. I'm not advocating that everybody play reverse Bergen. I have played it for a number of years, and I like the bid a lot. I am aware that there are many people who do not like it, though, but I would make the point that Marty Bergen and Larry Cohen did quite well with it. Marty Bergen developed most of it. It's based on the law of total tricks, is where it comes from, and he was the principal architect of the law of total tricks. And I would not mind at all if I could have the success that Bergen and Cohen did, but that's another story. Now, opener here has a losing trick count of 7, and now responder has a losing trick count of 9. The combined total is 16, which would normally say that 8 tricks are available. We'll have a 1 spade opening with a 2 spade response. Now, opener should expect a losing trick count of 8 or 9. And in this case, that means that the opener should pass, because even if responder has a losing trick count of 8, we just don't have enough to make a game. There is no game available. I've often had newer players say to me, well, I bid 3 after we bid 1 spade, 2 spades, and then I bid 3 spades, and my partner bid 4, and I didn't really want her to. Well, if you don't want your partner to bid 4, don't invite. This is a good way of determining here that in bidding 3 spades, I mean, just because you found a fit doesn't necessarily mean that you should keep bidding. I think most all of you know that by now. But if you are a newer player and you don't want your partner to bid game, then don't invite her, particularly in a non-competitive auction. It's one thing to bid on in a competitive auction, which should be based on the law of total tricks, but it's another to bid on in an uncontested auction when you don't have to do that. Now, here comes the part about losing trick count and cover cards. Rather than estimating the losing trick count in responder's hand, responders can evaluate their hands for the kind of cover cards they have in them. Well, once responder can estimate the losing trick count in his partner's hand, he knows he has no more than 7 losers. Then once he knows that, if he can estimate the losers, he looks at his hand and says, how many cover cards do I have? In other words, what cards do I have that can cover one of my partner's losers or 2 of my partner's losers? How many of his losers can I cover? This whole idea was developed by George Rosencrantz, who lived in Mexico City. Even though he was an American citizen, he retired to Mexico City, or maybe it was elsewhere in Mexico in the 50s. He was a medical doctor who is responsible for the development of oral contraceptives. And he's also an avid bridge player, and he developed the Rosencrantz double. And he is the one who developed an improved theory of cover cards back in the late 50s or early 60s. So a cover card is any high card that is likely to annul one of partner's losers. So any ace or any king that the responder has counts as one cover card. A queen counts as one cover card if partner is known to have at least 3 cards in the suit. Otherwise, she counts for half a cover card. When holding 4-card trump support for partner, remember we've talked about how important the 9th trick is between the 2 hands? That 9th trump is golden and is a lot of the basis for the law of total tricks that I mentioned earlier. A doubleton counts as half a cover card if you have 4-card trump support. And a singleton is worth an entire cover card if you have 4-card support. And a void, yay, is 1.5 cover cards. So shortness, when you have 4-card trump support as responder, is a big deal. It's a big deal. With only 3-card support for partner suit, though, a singleton is worth only half a cover card, and a void is assessed as 1 entire cover card. Now, the number of cover cards is going to change the more you learn about your partner's hand. For instance, you may be able to figure out what partner shape is from the bidding. And if you can figure out that you have a queen in a suit where partner is known to have 3 cards in it, well, now all of a sudden that queen counts as a cover card where initially it may not have. So these kinds of things change as the bidding goes on, as it always does. Hand evaluation always should change following every bid by your partner or every call made by an opponent. It's important to reevaluate because these numbers are not static at all. This last slide here shows various suit combinations, and it shows how many losers should be counted for each one. For instance, here's ace and 4 little ones. These are all averages based on how the suit is most likely to be distributed around the table. So that ace and 3 small is 2 losers on average, ace and 4 small, 2 losers on average. Same thing. King and 3 little, 2 or more, of course, depending on where that ace sits. That king is a positional value only, and it may or may not be worth a whole trick. Now, ace and 3 small obviously counts as fewer losers than king and 3 small, but we do this sort of calculation for the same reason that we use the 4-3-2-1 system when counting high card points. That's because nobody wants to sit here and add 4 1/4 plus 1 1/2 for the queen and plus 3/4 for the jack. That gets very laborious. So we just round off and use 4-3-2-1, bearing in mind that aces and kings are undervalued and queens and jacks have a tendency to be overvalued, particularly jacks. So take this with a grain of salt. It's been modified the same way the point count system has for ease of use. So when you are looking at your hand, based on last week's lesson and this week's lesson, using quick tricks can help you confirm or refute your initial impression of the strength of your hand, particularly if you're sitting on the fence about opening in first or second seat. Once you and your partner have found a fit, though, after one round of bidding, if you have found a fit, then the losing trick count can help you evaluate whether it's appropriate to issue an invitation, whether based on losing trick count shown by your partner indicates that you should bid game or whether you should just pass. So don't hesitate to use these tools. They are secondary methods of hand evaluation, but they can be very, very useful, particularly when you don't have enough experience yet to be able to look at your hand and just know. You know, experienced players can look at a hand and know from the feeling in the pit of their stomachs whether it's appropriate to bid on or not. But even they have some hands where they need to evaluate. And these are 2 important tools that you can use to help you make those decisions. Thanks for coming, everybody. We're going to cheer for the Cowboys and for the Sooners again this week and hope they win.
Thank you, Susan.
Oh, you're very welcome. Anybody have any comments or questions?
I've
I would
never,
love it if you could show us a hand and count the quick tricks and the losing trick count at the same time.
Well, let's see here. Okay. How about this one on page 11? I'm showing 3 1/2 quick tricks in this opening hand here. That's quite a bit, isn't it? Because I have ace, king, queen of spades. So that gives me, and then my king here is a 1/2 a quick trick. So 1, 2, 3 1/2. I do not count queen doubleton as any quick tricks. This is generally 3 1/2 quick tricks is better than a minimum opening hand in general. The thing is, though, you have 2 losers here and 2 losers here and 3 losers here in the club suit. So wonderful to have a trump suit or potential trump suit like this spade suit. But this is 3 1/2 quick tricks. But I'm hoping that my partner can support, and sure enough, he does, with 2 spades. And so now I count my losing trick count. And I'm very chagrined to see that I have a losing trick count of 7. With 3.5 quick tricks, I might expect to have a losing trick count of 6. And notice, I have 14 high card points here, but that counts 2 full points for that Queen of Hearts. Particularly if the opponents have bid hearts somewhere, I am not counting that Queen of Hearts at all. Maybe I'll get it if they take a finesse, but queens and jacks in the opponent's suits don't rate to be worth the cardboard they're printed on. So if my opponent's bid hearts, all of a sudden that 2 points that I have there for the Queen of Hearts, I'm thinking is not going to bear fruit for me. So now all of a sudden I still have 3.5 quick tricks, but my losing trick count looks worse. I have to count 2 for the hearts, 3 for the clubs, and 2 for the diamonds. So I still have a losing trick count of 7, even though I have 3.5 quick tricks. This is, and I'm never going to be on the fence about opening this hand because it has 14 high card points in it. And as I said, 99% of all 2 quick trick hands that have 14, let me rephrase that. 99% of the hands that have 14 high card points in it will have a second quick trick in it for opening. This one just happens to have an unusually good suit. Does that help you, Sherry? You want me to do another one?
Well, can you go through like the responders losing trick count 2 and
Sure. Okay, let's look at responders losing trick count. He has 3 losers in spades, but he hopes his partner has good spades, and it's possible that a partner has a 10 high suit. You know, that happens. But if that's the case, then your losers are in the trump suit rather than in the side suits. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be playing the suit when you have an 8-card fet just because you're a little short in honors. So you have 3 losers in spades, 2 in hearts, 2 in diamonds, and then 2 in clubs. So how many does he have? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4,
9.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, even though this hand has 9 high card points in it, notice it has 9 losers. That is, and by the way, 9 losers is what 8 or 9 losers is what you might expect if your partner opens a week 2. In general, and that's a week 2 only. Don't count that for a 3-level preempt at all. But with a week 2, generally those hands have a losing trick count of 8. Occasionally it may be 9 if the conditions are favorable for opening a little bit light. Say you're in the 3rd seat and it's pass to you. Well, you might be inclined to open a 5-card suit at the 2 level, particularly if the opponents are vulnerable and you're not. So depending on the circumstances, it might be more than 8 losing tricks, but in many instances, the week 2 bidder has a losing trick count of 8. So even though you had 9 high card points, which is quite a bit, that's right there at the top for a hand that has bid 2 of the major, given a simple raise. But based on the distribution of the hand, you know, this is that ugly duckling shape. It's a 4-4-3-2. Anything that's 4-3-3-3, 5-3-3-2, those are the worst, and 4-4-3-2 is only slightly better because there's the doubleton in it. These hands that are balanced like this often have more losers than one that's more unbalanced. There was one back here. Take a look at this one here on page 10, responders, losers. Completely different. This is a 10-point hand, only 1 point better than the previous one. But look at the shape. This is a 5-4-3-1. I really like that shape, as long as my partner didn't bid my singleton. You know, that happens from time to time. But in this case, only 1 point more, but this is a 7 loser hand. not a 9. That the shape is what makes the difference. Losing trick count and quick tricks they were developed mainly to help players take shape into account. Now, obviously, you can carry it too far, like on the one hand that I showed you, where the 2 hands showed a losing trick count of 12, but there's no way you can make a small slam. You're going to be lucky to make game on that hand. So you can't abuse these things, but these tools are an effort by people to take shape into account more than just using the high card points and adding them up like you had an abacus in front of you. You just generally want to have a way that will help you evaluate your hand, both for opening and then for bidding on, if that seems appropriate. And if you play regularly with somebody, you probably will have a pretty good idea of what they have based on how long you've played with them, is the main thing. So you may not need these tools after you've played with somebody for a while, but I still, as long as I've been playing, I still look at things when I'm not really sure. For instance, if I really want to open this 11-point hand, maybe I'm stretching to get to 2 quick tricks, for instance, or because I have only 11 points in it, or maybe it has 12 in it and it's aceless. What do I think? How many quick tricks do I really have? Is this worth opening if I don't have 2 quick tricks? So this is the reason you use these tools, to help you make decisions based on shape and then the strength of your values. Prime values are always more highly desirable than the quacks, queens and jacks, the secondary values, or non-prime values. If your hand is rich in prime values, I tend to tick my point count up 1 and maybe even 2. If all my values are in aces and kings, I love it, particularly for suit contracts. In no trump, I like to have some tricks that I can develop, but I also like to have a few high cards to give me control too. So does that answer your question, Sherry, at all?
Yes, thank you. I'm starting to put it all together.
Yeah, I'm not implying by any stretch of the imagination that you use both of these at the same time. For instance, as I said, I never use losing trick count to determine whether to open a hand. But I definitely use it when my partner and I have found a fit. And when I'm opening the hand, if I'm not entirely sure, maybe I use the rule of 20, look for the rule of 20 plus 2 if I'm in doubt about opening in first or second seat.
Beth has her hand up, and then there's a couple questions in the chat.
All righty, go ahead, Beth.
Well, on that very first example that you did with Sherry's question, at the bottom, when the responder knows, you've got 7 and 9 is 16, so that's not worth going on. Does responder, is it just over then, or does a responder take into account those cover cards you were just talking about at that point?
Well, in this instance, after 1 spade, 2 spades, the decision on whether to bid on is now the openers.
Okay.
Not responders. So he has a losing trick count of 7.
Right.
So even if responder has a losing trick count of 8, that comes to 15.
Not enough. Yeah.
And only 9 tricks are ever going to be available at the best. If he has a losing trick count of 9, then only 8 tricks are going to be available.
Right. Okay.
So if there's no game available, I'm not about to go on.
Okay.
That's the main thing. Now responder knows that he can cover. He has 2 cover cards. He has 2 aces. Those are cover cards.
Right.
But he knows that the opener has 7 losers. That still leaves him with 5, right?
Right. Yes.
So 5 losers means 2. We're gonna we could make 2 spades.
Okay, so that would be
So he does not bid on with a losing trick count of 7. He's minimum, he should pass.
Okay, so 8 losers means he should be at the 2 level and 9 losers means
But
they should.
well, with a losing trick count of 7, when your partner has given you only a simple raise, when you have a losing trick count of 7, you don't have to think. You just put down the green card.
Okay,
It's when responder gives you a limit raise, however, whatever method you use to convey a limit raise. Now I'm going to rethink it. Okay, now I know that definitely my partner has a losing trick count of 8, not 9. However, my losing trick count is still 7, and that's a sign that I should pass, even with 14 points.
okay.
This seems weird because one of my favorite sayings is invite with 11 and accept with 14. So that means if my partner has invited me and I look at my hand and I say, okay, I have 14 points, is that Queen of Hearts worth anything? And that comes down to, did the opponents bid? If they bid hearts, then I'm not accepting.
Oh,
Because my Queen of Hearts is worthless. Now, all of a sudden, instead of having 14 high card points, I only have 12. That is a dead minimum. 12 point hands don't accept invitations. So then I would pass.
gotcha. That's great. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, Rick, fire
Okay,
away.
check question. As a responder, how can you count the losing tricks of your opening partner?
Well, you can't until he goes on. If he passes after a simple raise from you, then he had a losing trick count of 7 and you were never going anywhere anyway. You know, a minimum opening opposite a minimum response, that's part score. You know, that's part score territory. Now, if you give your partner a 2/1 bid and you bid 2/1 game forcing, then you know your partner has losing trick of no more than 7, and you should have a losing trick count of no more than 7. So you're in a game force. So when your partner opens, you know he has no more than 7 losers. That's the best way that the responder can estimate his partner's strength using losing trick count. And this can help you. Sometimes, you know, when opener rebids, if he has 19 to 21, he can jump shift, or he can jump to 2 no trump with 18 or 19. When he's opened one of a suit, if he just bids a second suit minimally, he can have all the way up to about 17 or 18 points because he hasn't limited his hand yet. He just wasn't strong enough to jump shift. So it can be helpful sometimes if you and your partner have a way of showing that kind of hand for responder to be able to estimate it. But in that particular case, let's say the partner has 17 high card points and he has a small singleton somewhere, so he can't open 1 no trump. He does not have the right shape to reverse. Let's say he's 5-3-3-2, doesn't have the right shape to reverse at all. So he can rebid at the 2 level, having anywhere from 12 to about 18 points in his hand. If you and your partner have an agreement about how that will be bid, then you can estimate. But the thing about it is, the thing you need to remember is if you have raised your partner's suit and he bids another one, that shows a hand that has invitational values in it for opener. That means generally total evaluation of 16 to 18 or 6 losing trick count. 6 losing trick count. Once partner uses a game try, you can pinpoint his losing tricks at exactly 6, because if he had 7, he would pass. If he had 5, he would bid the game. That's the best way I know how to tell you how to do that. If you have not found a fit, you're not using losing trick count yet. Okay?
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, this last question has to do with deciding to open. If you have 12 high card points, but you have 8 or 9 losing trick count, would you open if you didn't have 2 quick tricks?
If I don't have 2 quick tricks, no. But I do, as I said, I do not use losing trick count to determine whether I'm going to open. If my hand is really balanced, I can have 13 or 14 points in it and have it be an 8 loser hand. I routinely open those hands. But I do not use losing trick count to determine whether to open. I use only high card points and quick tricks. If I have 12 high card points and only 1 quick trick, unless I have a good rebid, I'm not going to open. But if I have a 6 card suit that I can open and rebid, then I'm going to open.
Okay.
But if I don't, I have passed 12-point hands, not often. I don't often pass them. They have to be 4-3-3-3 and aceless. For instance, I cannot imagine I would open that hand, even if it had 12 high card points in it. Now, if it has 13 or 14, that's a horse of a different color, because if it has 14 in particular, I'm liable to have my required number of quick tricks. Hi, this is Susan. Thanks for watching this video today. Most of these videos come from our free bridge lessons that we present on Zoom every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. If you'd like to join us for those lessons, you can email us at the address shown below and we'll send you the link. If you can't attend the lessons, then feel free to subscribe to our channel and you'll be notified when there is a new one added. Again, thanks for stopping by and we hope to see you soon.